Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am blessed with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Proctor, and I am from the great state of West Virginia in the United States. I like to tell people I'm from the other Virginia. Sometimes when people hear West Virginia, they just hear the Virginia part. And I'm like, no, we seceded in 1863. We're our own state now. I will be 42 come November, which I never thought I'd live to be this old. When I was like 7, 8, I thought, 16, I thought I'd be dead before I'd ever get my driver's license. So, and here I am, soon to be 42. I live in my hometown. It's really not a town. It's a little hamlet called Pinch, Pinch. And it's about 10 miles north of our state capital. If you're driving through Charleston, we're also the other Charleston, not to be confused with Charleston, South Carolina, which a lot of people do. We're distinguished by the gold dome of our capital, and it's an actual gold dome. It's 24 karat gold leaf. So you'll definitely know you're in the other Charleston when you drive through. I have 2 dogs, which you might hear barking in the background. One is named Marin, the other one is Monty, and I also have 2 cats that live with me. And so we're here in LaBelle Pinch, as I like to call it. I was born and raised here. I was educated in West Virginia. I've been to just probably almost every county in West Virginia. We have some beautiful scenery here in West Virginia. It's very rural. If you know anything about this area, we're not highly developed industry-wise. Mostly through our old industries are coal, which is still a predominant industry within our state, and then other things like glass, which is something a lot of people don't know about, that we used to make. Blenko, Fenton are some of the 2 bigger names if you're a glass collector. We also are known for our salt making here in the Kanawha Valley. And with that, the J.Q. Dickinson Salt Works is something that if you're ever in town, you'd like to go visit. It's very interesting through there. They create salt. There is a ancient ocean that is trapped underneath the Kanawha Valley. It's called the Iapetus Ocean, and they pump the seawater up from the ground, and they put it in solar drying vats. And so it's they try to be as clean and green as possible, and they slowly evaporate the water and leaves these beautiful salt crystals. It's great. It's a local business. One of the family that originally started out, the Dickinson family, they got away from it, and then their newer family members have come on board to give it a new twist. So those are some of the things that we're known for. We're also known for our chemical manufacturing. If you're into chemical engineering, we have lots of chemical plants here in the Kanawha Valley. I'm surprised I don't glow in the dark, considering the fact that my father and grandfather both worked for a chemical manufacturer here, which I'm still waiting on to glow in the dark because I think that would be pretty cool. But anyway, I digress. I have a quirky sense of humor, as you can probably tell. I love to do art. You can see some of my paintings in the background here, hopefully. Uh, I I'm a big supporter of women-owned businesses, and the paintings that you see along the top there are through a local woman-owned studio, Tiny Sparrow Art Studio in Gassaway, West Virginia, which is up in Braxton County. Uh, Oddly enough, it's also home to the Braxton County Monster or Flatwoods Monster. So if you're on YouTube or just on Google, look that up. It's something fun to learn about. Also, my t-shirt I have on here, this is also a locally owned, woman-owned business, which right here in town near me, Sarah's Custom shirt business. She does that, and I also help out with a local glass art studio, Amanda's Glass Art. I help do the Facebook for her Facebook marketing to keep her present in social media. She really doesn't like to do it, so to help her out, I've taken that over for her and really gotten her profile up within social media to help her to help maintain her studio. So those are some of the things I do on my downtime. My work, my day job is I work for the state of West Virginia. I work for the Department of Education. I have been with the state overall for 17 years. I'll be 17 years in February. And most of that has been with the Department of Education. 4 of those years have been spent with the parole board as the executive secretary to the chairman. That was a very interesting experience, and I'll probably go into that here in a little bit. But my days are spent at the state capitol, and I have served in a number of roles within the department. Probably my most noted role is I worked in the state superintendent's office as the main receptionist to the state superintendent. I answered literally thousands of parent phone calls, listen to their anger, their concerns, their anguish, their emotions. So I've pretty much have experienced a lot of raw human emotion through the phone. Also with COVID, that was a very, very difficult time for parents, for family members, just the stress of it, having their children home all the time, not having adequate internet access, being physically isolated where they lived, not having vehicles to get to some of the internet hotspots. It was a very tumultuous time, and it was very, very hard to get through, but we pulled together as a department. We had some wonderful team leaders that just stayed on top of everything, especially our child nutrition office. They did a outstanding job. They were with it 100% of the time. So I do work with some amazing colleagues. I've learned so much in my different roles. I've learned all about providing customer service to the citizens of West Virginia, and that's what my goal is to provide the best service, the best customer support that I can. And especially with education, because that's something I'm really passionate about, is education. My mother was very involved with my education. She encouraged me to do a lot, both my brother and my sister as well. They're much older than I am. I'm 20 years younger than the both of them. I was one of those heart attack babies that happened. Uh, but sometimes people, they look at me and they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, my brother's 23 years older than I am. So that's, that's another unique thing about me as well. Um, One of the things that with my job that I enjoy doing is I enjoy helping people as much as I can. So many people in West Virginia they've had a negative experience with education. Perhaps that they've had learning disabilities that weren't properly diagnosed. They had came from a family life that that wasn't supportive of them getting to school every day. They might have, issues of perhaps they were bounced around in foster care. There's a number of things, especially extreme poverty. Those are all factors um, that really impact people's perceptions of education. And one of those things that I try to do when people call for help is to try to give them the best information and to try to help them understand what our role is in the process of education in West Virginia. So I will today, for example, I was on the phone for good 20-25 minutes with a parent trying to explain to them what options that their high schooler had in terms of completing their high school diploma. So those are the things that I really try to focus on, is try to help parents understand, and guardians, caretakers, grandparents especially. I talk with a lot of grandparents who are in the process of raising their grandchildren for one reason or another. West Virginia, we're also known for our opiate misuse disorder. We have a very high rate of that in this state, and a lot of that has shattered a lot of families, and a lot of families are just trying to hold together to um, just get through it the best way they can. So a lot of grandparents call in, they've been out of school for 30, 40, 50 years. They're like, this is brand new to me, like, what can I do? So I try to do that as much as possible. um, and I try to take as much time as I can to listen to people, to try to understand what they're wanting. With the parole board, I learned all kinds of different things. I saw the dark side of the moon, the good, the bad, and the ugly of human behavior, and that really opened my eyes up to see how the struggles that some people have, and the chronic cycles that some people get into in terms of reoffending, and what causes them to reoffend, the struggles that they have trying to find work, trying to get their family back together again from what's happened. So I'm glad I took that job. That job just sucked the life right out of me. It is a very soul crushing job. Sometimes just the severity of everything that I dealt with. But it was important for me to see that, because I brought that information back to my job in education, and that really helps me to help the families, because I better understand what's going on with them. I don't know if you can hear my dog. Probably that is the deer outside. We have a very large deer population that likes to hang out in the yard. And Marin, she's convinced that they're going to break down the door and do something. I guess maul us to death. I don't really know. So I have a whole.
Yeah, we can hear the dog.
I went in my kitchen with the door shut, and she's just that loud. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, she certainly got me to jump in here and start asking you some questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing and at least giving us a backdrop of where you are in West Virginia. A lot of people don't know that there's two Virginia states in the US. One is West, and where you are is completely different. So thank you
Right.
for framing that for us and giving us a bit of information about the region as well. So let's go back to your role in education and the impact that COVID had on your community.
Mhm.
How were parents and schools coping with the pandemic in delivering education to kids?
That was one thing that I have never seen us move so quickly, to try to keep the level of service for our students up. We were given a very short notice that all of our schools would be shut down. And one of the number one things that students rely on in West Virginia is our free and reduced lunch program. So many students need those services because of their family situation where there's food insecurity. And a lot of our students, the two solid meals they get a day is through our school system. And that was our number one concern when we were told that the schools would be shut down, was how are we going to feed these children? So our child nutrition office jumped in and they did a remarkable job. They organized people at the county level. Cooks came in, staff came in and boxed up lunches. Our bus drivers would drive the meals to their normal route, and they would drop them off to the families, to the students, to make sure that they got their meals. So there was a lot of involvement to make sure that those students got fed. With the Every day I talked to so many parents, it was just unreal. And two of the major things was with the online learning. Everyone had to switch to online learning. Well, if you're in West Virginia, we don't have a very wide fiber optic network. And one of the things that a lot of communities struggle with is access to that. So many homes in West Virginia don't have high quality internet service. So a lot of them have to rely on satellite internet, or in some cases, some places they still have to use dial-up, which is just a dinosaur in technology today. But that's all they have. And the other issue that, I would talk to parents every day was that they would call me, or call the superintendent's office. That's where I worked at the time. And their main concern was, my children have all of this schoolwork to do online, but we don't have internet at home because we can't afford it. It's not reliable in our area, etc. And we only have either one vehicle to drive to one of the internet hotspots, or we have no vehicle at all. And so many parents were calling in just absolutely just frustrated and at their wits' end, because they were trying to make sure that their students had what they need to continue school. But at the same time, not everyone realized the struggles that they have, such as they don't have a car to get to an internet hotspot. And so it took us a lot of times, reaching out to the counties and saying, what can you do for this family, or what can you do for the community members? Can you work out something to where maybe it's not all internet? Could you give them some, like a paper packet to do? So it really took some creative thinking on our part, and just a lot of understanding with the parent situation, because so many parents work and they didn't have access to childcare. They were trying to do their jobs from home, trying to oversee what their children had to do homework wise. It was just everyone was struggling. And the only thing I could tell people is, we understand, we have working parents too. They're just as frustrated as you are. We're going to get through this together, and we'll work through it, and we will help you as much as we can. So
It sounds like you did a lot of work to try and keep the community together and keep things going. The perception that we have of the United States is that technology is available everywhere. To learn that you don't have fiber optics in all of your areas is, again, something new. But the whole issue with food security and children not getting access to a meal every day is also something that is quite shocking for us on this side of the world to wrap our heads around and understand, because the perception is that America is a first world country. None of these issues actually exist there.
yeah.
So there's still quite a lot of marginalized communities, correct?
Yes, yes, there is. West Virginia, in particular, we have a very high poverty rate. We have a lot of families that are above or below the federal poverty line, which is, I can't think of what the number is offhand, but that's one thing that people, like you said, they have this perception of the United States that the streets are paved in gold, and Big Macs fall down from the sky. But in certain places, in a lot of places in the United States, that's not true, and that's in West Virginia. That's very true. We have our workforce for so many years was based on industrial work, such as coal mining, and also glass making as well, steel making. So a lot of those jobs have gone away because of technology and mechanic. Just the overall mechanical nature of the work. You don't need as many people in that particular field. So a lot of people struggle with finding suitable employment that will actually support a family.
Mhm.
We so it's a struggle for a lot of our families here in West Virginia. So that's one thing in Department of Education. I work with adult ed now, and that's one of that's I have to say, working with that office now, I really see how much of an impact that they make with the adult learners in our state to try to help them to get to the best place possible.
Wow. It's a challenging environment. Now, let's go back to your personal story and your mother's influence on you. A lot of strong women have got strong women who have supported them, who've guided them. Tell us a little bit about your mother's story and why she has such a big influence on you.
Okay. My mother, she was a force to be reckoned with. She grew up here in the Canal Valley. Both my parents did. My father, he spent a lot of time. His family went back and forth between here and out west, and but he was born here in the Canal Valley, and his family knew my mother's family. And mother, she love her heart. She marched to her own tune. She was, if you're into astrology, she was the epitome of an Aquarius. She lived and breathed in her own little universe. Mother loved to learn, and she had, when she was in high school, she graduated high school in 1958. If that tells you how old she would have been. She passed away in 2001. But she had dreams of, she thought about going to college, but neither one of her parents had gone to college. Her father had graduated from high school, which was a big thing back in those days. Her mother had, I think, a sixth grade education. So she could, read the newspaper, write, that kind of thing. But, she didn't go past grade school. But mother, she talked herself out of going to college because she hated English, and she didn't want to have to take English any more than what she had to. So she focused on going into sewing, and she loved sewing, and she loved Latin, which was one of her two things. And so she wound up going to a general schedule so she could take Latin and sewing at the same time, and she did that, and she loved it. And so when she got married actually when she was still in high school to dad, and she got married at 18. Dad was 19, and they got married, and so dad was working, and she had gone to work part-time. And that's what you did back in those days. And then she had my brother, she had my sister, and my dad had gone on, I think he had gone on strike at the time. The company that he was trying to work for was trying to organize with the Teamsters, and they were on strike. And so mother needed to to support the family income some more. So she got connected with an employment program that provided her like a stipend, like a living stipend, and then they covered her tuition for a commercial college here in Charleston. And what she did was she went enrolled in it. She enrolled in the accounting program, and she learned, she started, taking the bookkeeping classes, the general office, everything. But so she was going through that program, and she got called into one of the, I guess, the principal's office, not in a bad way though. And he told her, he said, well, I had a visit from the local FFA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration. At that time, it was called the American Aviation Administration. And he said the regional director came in and he needs an executive secretary. And he wanted to know who my best student was. And he said, would you be interested in interviewing for a position? And she said, yeah, because, dad was on strike, 2 kids at home, rent, bills, all that. So she went and interviewed. They liked her. They hired her. But she never quit learning. She wanted to continue on. She started taking Spanish because she was looking at, possibly trying to move up, maybe get a transfer to another location. And, Spanish, they needed bilingual people. So she started studying that and, really honing her skills with that. And then she always would volunteer. One of the things I remember the most about her was she worked with a volunteer organization called Literacy Volunteers of America, and they provide free tutoring services to adult learners who are illiterate. So she had students that she would work with once a week. She would go through they have specialized training. They train the tutors. So you're trained in learning styles. You're trained in how to communicate linguistics with students. She also worked with English as a second language tutor as well. So for those speakers that are, English isn't their first language, but she worked with the literacy volunteers. And that's one thing that I realized at a very young age. I just took for granted that, everybody had books, everyone had someone to read to them at night. I just assumed everyone had that. And through watching her do that, I realized that not everyone had that her reading to me every night, her taking me to the library, her getting me my library card and having me participate in the summer reading program. Those were some things that not everyone had access to.
Wow. Well, you were really blessed to have her in your life as such a strong role model. And she really instilled the value of education in you as well, by the sound of it.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the opioid crisis and what made it a crisis in West Virginia. What was the beginnings of this? Where are things now?
With the opioids in the crisis in West Virginia, there was a lawsuit, class action lawsuit, taken up by our Attorney General, and also several other states as well, against manufacturers of the pill or medication called OxyContin, which is probably one of the best well-known opioid medications there is. It's a painkiller. It's a very high energy painkiller, and it can be very addictive if you start taking it. And one of the cruxes of the lawsuit was that these drug manufacturers came in and pushed these particular medications to pharmacies, to doctors, to have them prescribe it in situations that perhaps that maybe the patient only needed just a little bit to get through a particular short-term medical problem, but they encouraged them to prescribe more than what should be. And it's just according to the lawsuit, they just flooded the market, so to speak. There was several pharmacists have been arrested over the last, I'd say, 10-12 years, doctors for forging prescriptions, people forging prescriptions, over medicating individuals. And but it also, the use of those drugs, it circles back to a high poverty rate. People who are suffering, they feel very some people feel trapped. They feel that, that their lives can't go anywhere. And so one of the things that happens with a lot of people is they turn to drugs to try to alleviate that feeling. And with the opioids, there's a great documentary on Netflix. It's called Heroin, and it follows the Huntington, West Virginia fire chief. It's also a woman, so I would look for that on Netflix, and you can see what it's like to deal with overdoses. I've gone to I've gone to speakers where ambulance personnel have said that sometimes they'll go to the same house 4, 5, 6, 7 times and have to administer Narcan, which is an opioid blocker, in order to revive them. I myself have had to call 911 just walking down the street, seeing someone who had overdosed on on pills. I've seen that myself, and had to make sure that they were awake and wait for the ambulance to come. So that's something I've seen firsthand. I just went to a Narcan training probably about 5, 6 months ago that was sponsored, learning how to administer it and what causes it. And especially with the knockoff, we learned about knockoff drugs and how they can be even more dangerous than the actual medication itself. And that was very eye-opening to me, because I didn't, I understand the dangers of these drugs, but to see how unscrupulous some people can be in taking advantage of that situation and manufacturing them and copying them and making them even more deadly is just unfathomable to me. So it really hits home, especially when I worked for the parole board. Just looking at the drug charges, it was just like I'd say every 7, 8 cases I had on my desk were somehow drug related charges.
Wow. That's a real tragedy. And this is happening more and more in the United States. We hear about it, we read about it, but it's interesting to talk to somebody firsthand who's experiencing it through your work. Now, you talked about working with offenders and watching the challenges that they have in getting back into their workplace, trying to get their lives together. The woman who's attracted us to you, her name is Tammy Jordan. She's from West Virginia, and she has a farm where she trains people who are offenders. She gives them culinary skills and tries to get them back into the workplace. What can businesses do to support people who are trying to get back on their feet once they've got a record?
Well, one of the things that people don't realize is, and here in West Virginia, we have a tax credit program for employers who do employ offenders, people with felony records, and they can apply through this program. They can get tax credits that can be used towards their business taxes. So it helps them, it helps the community, it helps the offenders find employment, it helps them keep a job, and it also helps the employer out by having that tax burden reduced. So many of the offenders, one of my jobs was I worked with executive clemencies, which were individuals that were either trying to get their sentences reduced or have something expunged off of their record. One of the number one things that people that in their application was how hard it is to try to find work, especially those offenders that have trade skills such as welding, such as HVAC, such as journeyman electrician. Those are all high demand skills that we need in our community. However, a lot of those construction jobs are off limits to offenders with felonies because, especially with federal work sites, they're not allowed to come on the property and work. And so that knocks them out of a lot of construction jobs, which they could very easily, make a great living at. And so one of the things that they're trying to do is they're trying to get their record cleaned up to where that they can go out and find that work. A lot of offenders, they had trouble finding a job, so they would go and create their own businesses. And that's one thing that they teach them. Some of the skills that they can learn in our facilities is business skills, small business administration, entrepreneurship. So because so many of them have difficulty finding work, a lot of them, they just create their own business. I had one individual who was applying for a clemency, and he had wound up starting three body shops. So he was a business owner of three businesses. Another one, same instance, he wound up opening three greenhouses. And so not only are they employed themselves, but they're also employing other community members. They're contributing back through business taxes, sales tax, etc. So it's a win all around for the community and the vendors, because it also helps keep them. It gives them that boost of confidence to come on, to keep going.
That is wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. So now I'm going to ask you two last questions.
Okay.
One is going to take you to your past, and the other will take you into the future. Okay. The first question is, if you could go back to the younger you, that young girl who was trying to make her way through life and figure things out, and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, things that you've learned about life, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
Well, the 3 nuggets of wisdom would be that I'll give you an example. One day when I was working for the parole board, when I was in college, I had this half-baked idea that I wanted to be a lawyer, and that's why I studied history. And I talked myself out of it because I don't do well on standardized tests. I knew I'd have to take the LSAT. I thought, I'll never be able to do it. I'll never be able to pass it. So just go find something else to do with your time. So fast forward about 13, 14 years, and I'm on the phone with this prosecutor, and I'm just absolutely baffled as to their lack of understanding of criminal law and the parole process itself. And I was on the phone for maybe half hour, 40 minutes with this individual, and I just hung up the phone, and I thought to myself, you know what? You could have been on the Supreme Court by now if I had just believed in myself enough to say, okay, I'm going to take the LSAT. I'm going to try for this, and I might be successful. And that's one of the things that I wish I could tell myself, that just quit being afraid to try something. Just do it. And listen to what your mother said. What's the worst thing they can tell you was no, and don't let no stop you. And that's something I need. Even today, I need to still keep reminding myself, don't let no stop you.
Wow. Those are amazing nuggets that you've left with us there. And now let me teleport you into the future.
Okay.
And you're 90 years old, and you're sitting on your couch, surrounded by your dogs, your cats, your children, whoever's going to be with you at that time. If you could have a conversation with the future you, this wise 90-year-old woman who's led you to that point, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
I would say I would tell myself, my 90-year-old self, to my 42-year-old self, I would say that you finally stopped being afraid to try things, to do things, to start to live for you. And so much of my life, my decisions have been like, well, what if I fail? And I think my 90-year-old self will be pleased with the fact that I'm starting to make traction with that idea that it's okay to try something new. It's okay to fail at it. It's okay if you change your mind halfway through it. Nothing's written in stone. And I think that's what my 90-year-old self will think about, is that I decided to take that leap and try to make it work.
I absolutely love that. That's wonderful. And the reason why I like to ask women this question is that sometimes we forget that that wise woman is already in us. She's already prompting us and guiding us. And sometimes we just have to tune into who we are becoming to get all the answers that we need. And the answers are already in us. So thank you for bringing that back to us and just reflecting that to us again today.
Well, you're quite welcome. I've enjoyed. I didn't think I could talk for as long as I did, but here we are.
I love it. No, thanks so much, Natalie. Absolutely awesome to meet you. I'm looking
You as
forward to
well.
being one of our speakers at our next online summit. So we will be talking and extending an invitation once we firmed up our dates for that event in West Virginia.
Wonderful. I look forward to it.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is now producing a podcast for West Virginia. We are producing a magazine. We're going to be having an event. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing woman. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Natalie, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you so much. You have a good day.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.